All right, welcome everyone. Great to see you this fine Thursday afternoon in June. I believe the last Thursday in June. Hopefully, your school years came to a smooth and happy conclusion, and you're already getting lots of good, fun, long-term projects done for the summer. Today we have a fantastic session waiting for you. We have a lot of folks that either their departments are family community engagement and communications, or they are being asked to take on more family and community engagement work as part of their communications department. We also have a lot of new CalSPER members in the area of family and community engagement. So I'm really excited to be stretching and getting a lot more of this content for our CalSPER members. My name is Trinette Marquis. I am your executive director. And today's session is going to be highlighting how internal and external communication, when strengthened by genuine engagement with staff, families, and community partners, improves educator satisfaction and belonging. This leads to increased retention and positive student outcomes. Through interactive activities, practical tools, and real-world district spotlights, you'll learn how to co-design initiatives that enhance internal communication, expand professional learning, elevate staff and partner voices, and cultivate a culture of trust and shared purpose. Attendees will leave with clear, adaptable strategies to strengthen communication and collaboration with their own districts. Our presenters today are with the CDE Foundation. Diana Meza, APR, is a seasoned communications and PR expert with more than 20 years experience across county agencies, higher ed, K-12, and state-level institutions. She has a proven track record in strategic planning, crisis comms, reputation management, and building effective communication systems. Gustavo Morales joined the CDE Foundation in September 2019. As a collaborative leader, he's helped strengthen and expand the labor management initiative across the state. And I understand that he is getting ready to lead some really great work in the area of AI usage. Also, a fun fact about Gustavo is that he made time to hang out with us today on the eve of a long vacation driving up the coast of California. And you guys know how busy it gets right when you're about to go on vacation. So thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm absolutely delighted to be able to soak in all the knowledge that you guys are going to share. One quick housekeeping note, if you have questions for them or comments, please put them in the chat. I'll be monitoring it, and then I'll sort of try to interrupt when I think the timing is right, or we'll save it till the end if it's something that they're not covering. All right, without further ado, take it away.
All right. Thank you. Good afternoon. And thank you for sharing your lunchtime with us. Gustavo and I are excited to share our knowledge during this next hour. And thank you, Trinette, for that fine introduction. We don't have to do it, and that's always a good thing. So you can go to the next slide, please. And we just did this part. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Californians Dedicated to Education Foundation. And since 2011, our foundation has worked as a trusted partner with state education leaders to build a strong public education system that serves every student in California. And within that, we have four key initiatives, which is the California Labor Management Initiative, which Gustavo leads, and cultivates collaboration between school districts and labor unions to build trust and solve complex problems through honest and inclusive dialogue. Then we have our STEAM initiatives, which equip educators with professional learning to make STEAM accessible for all students. And then we have our residency lab, which modernizes educator preparation through hands-on residency and apprenticeship pathways. Then you have our initiative, which is a family and community engagement initiative. And we build the relational trust and structures needed for lasting family school partnerships, right? And connecting those dots. And so as you see, FACE touches each of these, but we found the most synergy with LMI. We knew that authentic family school partnerships required us to address the labor management side too. So it was a natural fit to partner and bring Gustavo and his team into this work. And I can't wait for you to hear all about it. Next slide, please. All right, our learning outcomes. Our goal is that by the end of this workshop, you'll know how to help districts and school sites turn intentional communications and genuine partnerships between staff, families, and labor groups into practical strategies and improve working conditions, elevating voices and creating one unified approach to collaboration. We will back this up with real district examples and take home plan you can apply right away. Next slide, please. You'll learn the why, what, and how of this work with a focus on frameworks and strategies. Next slide. The first framework is the dual capacity framework, and that was developed by Dr. Karen Matt, and that's the North Star for family and community engagement work. And we found that it applies just as powerfully to labor management work. In this framework, you'll notice that much of our work lives in the process conditions and organizational condition sections. The takeaway is that family and employee engagement must be sustained, meaning systemic and organizational and handled respect. Oh, sorry. Are handled respectfully, meaning rooted in trust and culturally responsiveness. Family and employee engagement is a recurring practice, not a one-time event. Integration, not isolation. That's what we keep on saying, right? And as Dr. Matt puts it, you can't build trust with your community if you can't actively build trust with all of your employees. So if you're not aligned internally, it's really hard to then connect externally, right? People know when things are not right. And so that's something that is really important. And we need to bring in our families and students and our employees into the conversation from the beginning. So this is a foundation and the framework that grounds everything we do. So now I will turn it over to Gustavo so he can actually talk to you about the pillars of collaboration, like on the labor management side. Gustavo, take it away.
Thanks, Diana. So before I get started, a little bit about me. I've been working with the labor management initiative for now 7 years, work with over 120 school districts, walking into meetings with board members and superintendents and labor leaders and district leaders all around. And every time we introduce the idea of increased family and staff engagement, they all look at me, they put their thumbs up and say, let's do it. How? How do we actually get this done? How can we as leaders actually go in and have a conversation with them where we don't just get the same parents and we don't get the same teachers and we don't get the same people coming over and over? So what we've seen at LMI and at the CDE Foundation is that we have to establish some working conditions and what are the actual non-negotiables when we are working with our teams, when we are working with our districts, and when we are working with our families. And we thought that the crux of this is how we communicate with them. How we bring them into the conversation has to be critical, and how we support them. So oftentimes we throw around these three words of you have to build trust, you have to build equity, you have to build communication. Well, I think there is an important piece of as I walked into these last 120 districts, people want to know how. So I wanted to start and break down the three essential pillars in order to build out this strategy with your teams. And the first one is pretty obvious, right? It's trust. How do we ensure that people trust each other? Because if you think about the trusting relationships you have, those have come over a long time, right? This is your best friend or your partner or even your siblings. Those didn't come naturally. So how is it that you build trust? So what we've said is that you build trust through follow through. Follow through is the key component that you can show as a professional, both to your staff and to the community, in order to ensure that they can trust that you're going to follow through on what you said you were going to do. It is not just about kumbayaing and trust falls and bringing people together and having potlucks. No, it is more than the potluck. It is about going in there and ensuring that you hold people accountable on follow through on what they said they were going to do. The second critical piece in building out your comm strategy or any strategy in order to engage staff and engage the family and communities is equity. And we get this word thrown around a lot, right? Especially after COVID, right? We need to build this, educational equity. Well, when we really drive down into educational equity, we have a good definition of what we mean for educational equity for students. What we don't have is good research on what it means to have equitable solutions for engagement, even around communication or anything else around staff and families. So we like to put this as support. What is the right support needed for our different families, for our different community members and partners, and for our staff? It does not look equal to everybody. So ensuring that the right support systems are in place in order for that person, whoever they are, to serve their student or child well. It is ensuring that they have all the tools, resources that they need in order to build that supportive system that is critical. The other non-negotiable is communication, right? Especially on this call on with Calsprins, we know that communication is a critical pillar. But when we go into these rooms, people often want to know, okay, what does it look like? So we like to define it and break it down into feedback. It is how information is given and received. It is not, let me just, as you all know, it is not just the email that was sent out to everybody and check mark, we got it done. Communication is a feedback loop similar to a freeway. What are the opportunities to give and receive feedback on any initiative, on how it's going, and to ensure that we can move that strategy forward and make any adaptable changes? So these three pillars really are the crux of any initiative. And whether it's a communication piece strategy or anything, it is really about how do we ensure that we have follow through, that we build supportive systems, and we have feedback loops to ensure that the people we are supporting, both our staff, families, and families, are able to give us feedback on what we're doing. And here's a question I often get. It's like, okay, well, I have those established. We've talked about them. Well, this is iterative. It has to happen on a yearly basis so that you can check in on your systems, because what happens is your staff changes, your leadership changes, your families change, as we know, so that we ensure that anything we have does not become stale. When we build those systems out, what we're doing is inviting staff and we're inviting families into our conversation. When we have built this out, we see practitioners often say, I don't feel comfortable participating with you. I'll go to that, but I won't raise my hand. Or we check the box, right? We build out this space for family and staff to give us feedback, but who shows up? The same people. Who shows up? The same students, the same families and staff. So we also started thinking, what are the conditions? What is the psychological safety that people have to feel to give you their honest reflections and feedback so that you can truly, honestly be listening right through that feedback and ensure follow through? We think this is a leadership development. We think all leaders on school campuses should be thinking about psychological safety and what they have to build as individuals in order to get people to, when you build those feedback loops, that they'll actually participate. So the first thing that we've learned, and this comes from the University of Utah and the study that they did around psychological safety, is that you have to build explicit norms and expectations so that everybody understands how to participate. There are no questions, right? As we know, we've all grew up in different families and households, so we all approach things differently. This one comes up a lot with staff, right? How is it that you want staff to bring up something that's not working? How do you want them to engage with something that they might see as conflict? I mean, for me, conflict growing up, we bring it up. Dinner table, that's the spot. Let's talk about it, right? A raised voice means passion, but I knew very rapidly I cannot transform that into the first middle school I work with, right? That is not the approach. But what is the approach? What are the norms? What are the expectations and how we want people to participate once we open that door? That is not clear to everybody. I'll tell you, once I was sitting on a school site council and I saw parents just casually raise their hands when they say, let's approve the budget. They didn't know how to participate. We need to build those norms and expectations in. As a leader, we also ask you to build a culture of appreciation. Whether we like it or not, we're human and we'd like to hear step by step that we're doing a good job or that something is going right. Here's a clue. Appreciation is not a pin that's given at a 5 or 20 year anniversary or a luncheon after 10 years of working somewhere. A culture of appreciation is understanding what does it mean for someone to feel like they have contributed something of value and that their path forward is they're on the right track. So those are two pieces that are critical and that this is going to be one of the hardest ones I put out there because you have to ask every individual person what appreciation means. So appreciation can come up in a lot of different ways. Even if I ask everybody listening to this, I'm going to get a variety of answers. Defining that as a leader is critical. The next piece to develop that psychological safety, and Brene Brown is a genius in this. If you haven't already listened to her, really talks about modeling vulnerability. So I'm not going to say more than she can, but what I will say is one time I called from her book, Modeling Vulnerability is stepping back and allowing your teams to make mistakes, to creating an opportunity for you to say, I don't know. You as a leader have to tell parents, I don't have all the answers. You have to tell fellow staff that you're figuring it out or you need more time. Modeling vulnerability places the opportunity to say that we are all human in this very complicated, siloed education system and that we don't have all the answers. With that comes a lot of space where you are saying, this is where I need to grow. And people then start doing the same to you. And when you start seeing their vulnerability come out and what are the spaces you need to address, you then are becoming very aware of the priorities you are as becoming leaders of other humans. The other piece that University of Utah is talking about here is getting to know your employees. I'm going to go very simply that we didn't choose who we're working with. We're in a bit of an arranged marriage, right? You don't choose who your teacher partner is. You don't choose who your principal is. You don't choose who your parents that you're working with. Because of that, you need to really get to know who you're working with and outside of the title that they have. It is it seems pretty straightforward, but I'm going to tell you the way I see this observed in action. I see this observed in action on your calendar. That you prioritize something outside of the task or deliverables on your work plan. This is a people priority where you're getting to know them and they're getting to know you, right? My anybody in my life will know that I love Excel sheets way too much. I do not do well in big crowds. I am kind of a bit of an introvert, and that introvertedness really allows them to navigate how they work with me and what they request from me. And so an understanding of who you're working with is critical, and we often forget this part. The other piece that we need to talk about as leaders is understanding that everybody has a unique perspective. You as leaders, as you start building those support systems and follow-up freeways and on-ramps, we need to understand that you are not here to change someone else's mind. That is not a way to participate in this world. You have to understand that everybody comes in with a very unique perspective, and their perspective is their truth. If they have brought something to your attention, whether it's about your communication approach or whether it's about the support system as a whole, you have to understand that you're not trying to convince them that they're wrong. You're trying to go deeper beyond the visible iceberg piece and start finding out what is the data that they're looking for, because this feels like an attack. When you in order to build psychological safety, you have to bring them at ease and understand their perspective in order to begin addressing some of the ways that things are not working. And that is the way to start moving into your priority list, understanding what they've seen is not working, because if they're seeing it, that is their truth, and their truth is your priority. And then finally, this one I don't think I need to go deep into, but transparency and communication is critical, right? In order to build psychological safety, there is very little in a school system, as we know, that actually has to be confidential. And what I say usually is this is not Vegas. What happens here needs to be spread out and does not have to stay here. So, how do we build the utmost transparency in communication? Because what people want to know is not what the change was, but the why behind the change. The transparency in the process to make that initial change or why you're doing something is critical, because if you don't tell them why something is happening, they will surely make it up for you. You're probably not going to be the featured person. It's not going to look good on your end, I guarantee it. So instead of being locked in to the way that communication is kind of like just an information system that I'm giving you, here's the end result, take somebody through a journey through that systems change so that they understand the why, and they don't have to tell you that you're telling me to do something when the state actually told us we all had to do it. That is a big gap in our communication of in and out, right? What is information that we're getting in and what are we putting out? That middle piece, that's the part that we often don't communicate to others, and oftentimes is not against anybody. So as you're building, right, a system that ensures that we're building trust and a collaborative culture, the first piece is really thinking about the pillars. The next piece is about thinking about you as a leader and how do you build the conditions for psychological safety. And then finally, building out how we want to get this done. The final one, the final kind of framework I want to introduce comes from Mary Lippitt. And she put it really beautifully, right? In thinking about managing complex change, it's really critical for people to understand that if we are trying to change our systems and how we want people to interact with us, we need to have ensured that their why, they understand the whole thing that is happening. We have to include our staff and we have to include our families in what we are doing in order to have effective change, because or else it feels like you're doing it to them. It is critical to have a vision so that everybody understands what direction we are rowing and what is our end goal. If you don't have one, then you start thinking about, building out and ensuring what does it take to get that to get us all rowing in the same direction. It's critical to have skills to really start thinking about what are the things that people need, what are the competencies that people need in order to get something done. Incentives, this is something that we don't talk about often, but there has to be a what's in it for me. What are the initiative wins? How is this benefiting the person that is now seeing that change in action? What are the resources? And yes, I do mean budget here in order to get this done. What is the people power, the budget, the time? All of those are the resources that we don't often talk about that it's going to take to get things done. And finally, there has to be a clear action plan to get it done. So what Mary Lippitt says is that without a vision, without understanding which direction we are going, you lead to a lot of confusion. People bumping into each other and not knowing which direction people are going. And when you start implementing something new, especially when you're starting to engage staff and they don't have the skills to do that, people often get anxiety around trying to participate in the way that you want them to. So the skills are necessary in order to implement this bigger complex change, because let's be clear, this is not a one time, I'm just going to do this one dose and all of a sudden everything is going to change. It really is critical to have those skills necessary to get it done. The next piece, really thinking about, and let me also add, this systems change theory is not just about our school systems. You could think about it anywhere you'd like, but the next piece is really that what's in it for me. Understanding that everybody has to see themselves in that and see themselves as winners. And without that, you're going to get clear resistance. You're going to see people really trying to push against you. In fact, if they don't see this as a clear opportunity for them to initiate one of their priorities. The resources need to be there because we all know these unfunded mandates, wherever they come from, it is frustrating when we're supposed to get something else done without the people or money to get it done. And then finally, without an action plan, and we've all seen this, right? We start something over and over. We get a lot of false starts. There's another new thing, another new thing, another new thing. It's like we have to ensure that we have a path to get this done. And that is critical in order to have this bigger system change and people to see themselves in it and a way to get it done. So what we've done is talked about what are the critical pillars that need to be discussed and how to get that supportive systems and really bring family and communities and staff into what are the change that we want to happen and what does engagement actually mean. We also talked about what do leaders need to build for conditions. And then we finally talked about how do we execute that change. So we actually worked with a few districts that have done this, and we want to showcase. The first one I want to lift up is Katati Roner Park. It actually is up in Sonoma County. So a little bit about them is they went to strike, right? And that strike became a fracturing of their community. And I'm not just going to say staff and staff, parents took sides, community took sides, the middle management took sides. It was a completely fractured district. And when they started prioritizing, how is it that they want to implement changes so that this doesn't happen again? They started prioritizing communication and how people were going to interact with each other. They started seeing that, we're going to come back together and we're going to use the communication systems that we have in order to avoid these breakdowns. Because once people started talking to each other, what we learned is that their management actually has created a lot of structures for communication already, but nobody knows about them. Or only that little group, right, that is always engaged, that always comes to your meeting. They're the only ones that know about all these communication structures. So, they built a labor management team, really started thinking about mapping their whole structure. They started saying, I want to know where all the decisions are being made, how decisions are being communicated, and if I have feedback, how do I give it? And what happened is even the superintendent stepped back and said, I don't even know the answer to that. So how do we develop something? And so what they did is they developed a very complex organizational and communications chart. They started on the left-hand side here, and they started building out all the different groups that meet, who attends those meetings, when they meet them, and it's cut off here, what they discuss, and what is the opportunity for you to give feedback into those. The labor unions also did the same thing. They say, here is my executive council. Here is where we meet, how we make changes within our labor union. And to the right of this, you actually see it all mapped out. The first thing that is very jarring is how complex our education system is. This is one school district. With the student at the center, all of those other circles that are either dark red or pink, you can start seeing these are all different structures in order to support that student. And then outside of that, and the non-colored or non-shaded in circles are the meetings that happen in order to inform how we work with that student. So what Katati said is that what we're going to do is together, we're going to provide an opportunity for everybody to know the avenues to provide feedback. How do we produce support systems, and how do we rehumanize this complex system that serves students? Another example is Salinas City Elementary School District. And so in the Central Coast, right? And so they said, we want to, in fact, here's what happened. The community schools grant came out, And one leader, the superintendent, said, let's apply for it. And then the ed services director, well, he was assigned it, and then he built out this whole project. And then he brought it to everybody, and everybody's like, what is this? Why are you doing this to us? Why this is another thing? Who told you like this is not what we're asking for? We need more blank or blank. So then they stepped back and they said, what we just did was the wrong approach. In fact, community schools would say this, they actually same thing. The best way to initiate and bring people in is invite them to start building the system that you are about to create. So they pumped the brakes. They all went back and they said, we're going to invite parents, our labor leaders, and our management to create a better way to approach community schools. What happened is really spectacular. They say they threw out their whole approach to schools altogether and said, we are now a community schools district because here is what parents need, here is what students need. They went back to the drawing board and were able to engage the broader community and an approach to re-envision what they wanted and what they expected from each student, parent, staff member, and manager. And when they did that, they had clear expectations of how to participate. They understood the humanness and the outcomes of where we were going. They understood the win, and they had a clear action plan to be able to get it done. This is a clear example of how they were able to prioritize the people in the room in order to do large scale effective change and really build the collaboration piece that was in order to ensure true engagement. With that, I'll pass it over to Diana with another example.
Thank you so much, Gustavo. And as you can see, that synergy and how we need each other to work together in this work. And I'm just always fangirling because Gustavo just has a way just to take you to church. So um, another example of this district that's prioritizing internal and external communications is Poway, and a lot of us are familiar with our good friend Josue Reina, and I talked to him. He said the superintendent and the board have prioritized family and employee engagement and are currently in the research phase. So they understand the importance of, investing in building relationships and trust. And so, um, he is at the beginning stages and would like to share the work. If you're interested, please reach out to him directly on these steps in the process. He gave me permission to share this. So that's another example of a district that is just barely starting. I know Gustavo talked about those that have already kind of gone through the work, but they're going through the channels, to be able to implement this and have a culture change within Poway Unified School District. Next slide, please. All right, so we have our summary of findings here that we've talked about, right? Our dual capacity framework, right? An asset-based, culturally responsive lens, genuine collaboration, core idea, right? About families as true partners and not an afterthought. A reminder that families, again, are core partners from day one. It's not a PR strategy. It's not another division or a department. Families, and I am a family, proud parent, public school system. We are the system. So always really keeping families and also employees in mind, because we can't really be a service to our families and our students if our employees are not understanding it or if they don't have a voice. So really thinking through that. Trust is the engine, right? Your internal trust, staff and leadership, and internal trust just shapes how families and community experiences the district. And the through line for every team is defining what partnership actually looks like in practice, building structures that make space for every voice, and equip every staff member to see themselves as an ambassador for student success. So this kind of sums up our summary of findings, which then will take us to our next slide.
Can I jump in here really quick, Diana?
Yes, sure.
So I want to add one thing is as we've been building out what in staff and family engagement looks like, this is the recipe, right? There is no like if you research district culture and climate, you're going to get redirected to school culture and climate. So this is the recipe that we have seen work is really moving from this I into a we. If you start talking, they usually say the district did this to me or they said this. Even if you talk to parents, is like the teacher, the where how do we develop the we? So we have strong findings that this is the way to start lifting up that district culture and climate that really affects almost every interaction that we have.
Thank you, Gustavo. And see, as you can see, we keep on finding those connections and connecting those dots because it really is important to change the culture of our educational system. So when we go over to our communication strategies, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I do want to plant a few seeds. I want our communicators and everyone listening to this is how are you communicating with all of your employees? How are you communicating with all of your families? Are you helping school sites assess their communications and offering best practices? The strategies here that are listed here are all worth considering, but they're compiled from both qualitative and quantitative research. But you're going to have to do the deep dive and know your own school sites, right? Since every site has they have different needs and resources. So, what maybe one school site really loves electronic communication, loves the flyers. Another one says, I need them translated and I need to go back to basics. I need a flyer. And really knowing and helping those assessing what we call communications health check, really assessing and helping your leaders assess what it is, what those needs are, and also talking to your teachers and staff and having them be part of that conversation so that that kind of tells you where you need to be and how to develop a communication strategy for your school site or district. And so a reminder that I did put on here, we do have family engagement that's coming up in November, and I've linked the communications best practices for building family engagement awareness to help you get started. So you can start small. The important thing is to start planning and cultivating right now, and you'll see on there it's there's some sample timelines and things to consider when planning for Family Engagement Month, or truly it can apply to any campaign. But it really talks about some of these strategies and how to put them into action. Next slide, please. All right, so as we come to a close, I want you to start thinking about those, and you can feel free to put it in the chat. Is what's one communication habit or barrier you can stop doing now? And what's one thing that you can start doing now? And if you'd like to go ahead and share that, you can drop it in the chat, and I can move on to some of our resources and frameworks. This is just more sharing out information on here.
And
Pranette, yes,
do you mind if I share one start that I
sure.
get a lot from people is our classified staff. I think one thing that I can, if you have one takeaway outside of my little sound bites, is please engage your classified staff. At district after district after district are telling me the same thing. They feel left out. They think that COVID was the only way people started noticing them because all of a sudden they became essential. They don't have emails. They don't know what's happening. They're not invited to staff meetings. They think that they are not educators. They think they are extra. Please, please engage with your classified personnel because they are a through line into the conditions that are needed for true change. And they sometimes are the only ones that live in the community that they serve. And they have such a critical eye of what it takes to have true, meaningful change in the district. And so I lift that up as one start that you might start doing in the new year.
I want to second that, Gustavo. When I was working at the district where I grew up, an aha moment for me, which it should have been something that we all know, but we don't know until we know. My father was a custodian in the district. I'm the director of comms, and I'm, at the family barbecue and like, what do you think of this new initiative? And he's like, what are you talking about? you know? And I'm like, well, we sent an email out about it and we have it on the website and it's on our socials. Like, all the things that you think you're doing to communicate it. And he's like, I'm sorry, hon, I come in and I am running like every moment of the day to make sure that the campus is taken care of. He's like, I know I have a computer in my like janitor closet and I have an email that the district gave me, but I really am not using any of that. I don't have time to use any of that. So it was a real aha for me, like, oh geez, could I not have thought through what the day-to-day experience is for our employees until like it really came into my face. And so like even if it's printing out some of the things that you send out by email, putting it in the staff rooms, absolutely reminding our principals that when we're saying share this with staff, we mean all staff, right? And when we are even doing surveys, if we're asking demographic questions in the surveys of the type of staff that people are, broadly supportive staff versus teaching staff, that's going to allow us to make sure that we're getting the right ratio of input. And you're absolutely right. Within the bulk of the districts in California, our classified staff, number one, are more likely to live in our districts, and number two, more likely to be there throughout their career, right? I mean, most of our teaching assistants are moms who went and volunteered in the classroom and then, 25, 28 years later are retiring as, a senior teaching assistant. So, there are lots of reasons that I'm absolutely thrilled to endorse your first action.
Yeah, I would say I'll even give you a second start is because once you invite classified to the room, it's going to feel so foreign to them. Build that psychological safety. Make it safe for them to participate. Don't make assumptions. Start at the beginning and listen. I think that so if you're inviting them to the room, which I think is critical, a beautiful example that you showed it, then once they're in the room, then what? That's the second question I would invite you.
Mhm.
Can I also I heard you say surveys, and so I'm going to offer one stop is we as a state love sending out surveys. And I think one stop for me is let's stop surveying things we're not going to take action on. So the easiest way to erode trust is to ask for someone's opinion and then to do nothing with it. So I
1000%.
yeah, I'm glad because sometimes I get resistance. They're like, we love surveys. And I'm
No,
like, I hate that unless you're
no,
going to do something with them. And
no.
if you have action
Mhm.
associated with it, great. Show me the results. Show me where I land on them. Show me what you're going to do with it. But if we're just surveying them because it feels right and we want to take temperature, don't take my temperature. Do something with it. And that's the one stop I'll say is don't ask for someone's opinion and then do nothing with it because they're going to stop giving you opinions pretty soon.
Yeah, and that really requires us as communications professionals to push back a little bit because will often have a leadership team that says, you know what, we just need to survey people. And so our role in those decision-making rooms is to say, okay, I'm happy to ask this question. What are we going to do if it comes back this other way? Like you want to ask, if we should have early out. Are you willing to do early out?
No.
Right? Sometimes we just have a lot of assumptions, or like you said, we just want to take the temperature, but it really does erode trust if we don't. I will add one thing that I really loved was the Kotati Roner Park, that org chart on engagement. Like we think of org charts as this internal thing, and I would say that might be another start is start mapping all of your engagement pathways and all of your touch points. And so, when I'm doing the communication certificate program, one of the things we talk about is if you have, let's say, a parent teacher conference, that's a touch point you could be taking advantage of. That's one that you could be filling that teacher with all the most important information that they could be sharing with the families when they come in and talk about what's going on with their student. But from the, micro level of like those one-on-one touch points all the way to the mass comms, really charting all of that and knowing how you can engage people in so many different ways.
Yeah, oftentimes when people engage, or a lot of teams engage in that kind of, or what is our communication? Oftentimes they're like, well, this seems like extra work. And I'm like, the structures are already there to
Mm-hmm.
get that information, to get that engagement, and to get their feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Don't overcome, like, don't build something new. Then they're going to roll their eyes and be like, oh, here comes another thing.
Yeah. Yeah, they love it when we implement completely new systems.
Exactly.
I really liked your systems audit check too. Like, I think that's a fun one to think about. Like, sometimes it's a checklist of like, oh, we developed this great thing, right? Okay, done. Now let's keep moving on. But, when I first started in comms, one of my systems from my strongest principles was sending multi-minute voicemails weekly. Like those were great systems back then. Like
Yeah.
this principal, I'm thinking of one in particular, he left at least 3 to 4 minute voicemails for every family weekly. And in 2006, that was amazing. Families loved
Yeah.
it. I think
Yeah.
right now they might hunt him down, right? If he was doing that. And it's just like it's too long for a
Yeah.
voicemail. So we have to keep checking in. Do these systems still work? We're bringing in all kinds of new people internally and externally who we're serving. So you always have to keep checking in on that.
Yeah, if I can add a layer, we were presenting recently at a conference, and somebody asked us the question, when? And I said, every year.
Hmm.
And I said, there is no easy route for this. You need to ensure that you're meeting all of those pieces every year, because if you think you can get away with just phoning it in, your staff and your parents, or excuse me, your families will 100% hold you
Hmm.
accountable, and they will do it publicly.
Yes.
So it's not even an option. Yearly, you should be doing that audit so that you can really ensure that their voices are have a place or a platform for it. And if you map that engagement, then you could place it somewhere and say, here is where you could give this, here's who you can reach out to. And sometimes it seems kind of like going back to the drawing board and whiteboard, and why do we have to do this for them? We have to. And I
Hmm.
don't think there's a easy way to answer that other than yearly.
Agreed.
Yep, it's the evaluation piece. You have to see it's one thing, checking off the boxes, but then just being intentional on your communications efforts and really knowing and assessing those that you are serving, how do they prefer it? Because last year it looked different and this year it might look different too. So I really appreciate this dialogue here. There's resources and frameworks that we talked about today and some that we did not, but that kind of anchor the work that we do. So feel free. I know everyone's going to get a copy of this slide deck. Again, there's a reminder for Family Engagement Month in November, and also this QR code for our guide, our family engagement campaign guide. Next slide, please. There's upcoming events and call for stories here. So just so you know, Family and Community, the initiative for Family and Community Engagement Initiative, we're doing some research and interviewing key experts around the state, and we're getting some really good information. And so we're working on that right now. And we plan to release that October 26th through 30th at the National Assembly for Family Engagement an education assembly, and they're coming to California for the first time, so it's a big deal. It's a national assembly. So we will release our findings there. Look into it. It's linked. Again, our Family Engagement Month. What are you planning to do? Our friends at UPK, we did some communications work with them, and they have a new toolkit available. So if you find yourself working on UPK communications, we included this link, and then I'm also always looking for good family and community engagement stories. So it's linked there. Please send me anything that you're doing that is genuine and authentic family and community engagement. We want to know about it. We want to boast about it. Please send it over, and we can work together on getting that story told. And now we go over to feedback. I'll hand it over to Trinette.
Yep. I'm a big fan of RPI, the four-step PR process. And so here we are at the E part. If you get a chance, please do take our brief survey. We have this at the end of all of our programming, and it just helps us audit our programming and make sure that we are on target and serving your needs. With that, thank you guys so much. This was fantastic. I wrote down a lot of notes. I'm going to be looking up, well, first off, that podcast you mentioned in the beginning, Diana, the one, it's called Curiosity Shop. And I cannot wait to look that one up. And then also, I think the new one on the Mary Lippett Managing Change. I'm going to be looking into that as well because so much of COM's work is essentially managing change, right? So when we get
Absolutely.
down to it, we don't communicate because everything stays exactly the same. We communicate change. So thank you guys so much for all of the great tools that you shared. I can't wait to get this out to everyone. It will also be posted on our website. We have a few things coming up. It's a little bit slower in the summer. But essentially, I wanted to especially remind you that we have NSPRA, the National School PR Association, next month in New Orleans. If you are a CalSPRA member and you are going, please check out the latest issue of CalSPRA Connect or our website under updates because we have every California presenter. Please go and check out their sessions and brag about them. We also have all the social events, and there are a lot. So you do not have to go to all of them, but you are certainly invited to as many as you would like to attend. Anything else for the good of the order? Diana, Gustavo? Gustavo, have a great vacation. You've
Thank
earned
you. Thank
it.
you. Thank you all. Really appreciate you.
Thank
All
you for
right.
the time. And thank you, Gustavo, for sharing your expertise and just being here with us.
Happy to.
Thanks you guys for
Thanks,
doing
Karen.
this. There are 18 people who registered and we sent reminders, but well, everyone's busy. So we'll make sure they get this great information. I enjoyed it as well.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.